Let the mergers and acquisitions begin. We've been talking about the banking deregulation. So with all the chaos rushing around us right now with tariffs and all of that, well, let's see, just how safe do you feel in the banking system? Fifth Third Bancorp to buy Comerica for $10.9 billion in an all-stock deal. I think that's really interesting, but what it does is it creates the 9th largest bank. So we just jump over those hurdles by creating it, by mergers and acquisitions. And not, honestly, it's not that it's a problem for mergers and acquisitions, except that the fewer banks that are out there, the more concentrated the risk and the fewer your choices to avoid that risk. So we want to keep that in mind as we are moving forward. And here we go. Michael Barr sees big bank deregulation as a threat to the smaller community banks. Well, of course they do. Why? Because those big banks are too big to fail. But the small community banks that are actually instrumental and critically important to the local economy, well, they just can't really compete with the deep pockets and the leverage that the big banks have. So he's out there talking about regulations again, but quite honestly, it's about sound money. None of this is sound money. However, on top of those deregulations that enable those smaller banks to merge and become larger banks, the FDIC is going to refocus U.S. bank oversight on material risks. And that means that it's more danger for you, the depositor. And considering the fact that the FDIC only has barely more than 1 penny for every insured deposits, and over time, over the last couple of years or so, what have we seen? We've seen a lot of testing of the system and the bail-in laws, where when a bank fails, anything that is not insured gets absorbed by the banks. Now, in the U.S., we've only seen that at 50%, but stay tuned. We'll see it at 100% when they're ready for us to know the risk. And after all, we've certainly seen the committee at the FDIC laughing because the public is not really aware and doesn't need to be aware of the bail-in risk. Can you see why it's so important for you to have sound money outside of the system in your possession? Because if you don't hold it, you don't own it, you're running all of the risk. And guess what? You don't get all of the gains. You just get your equity leveraged through hypothecation, which is the legal ability for these banks to use whatever you have in there, those deposits, etc., for their benefit. And when things fail, like we saw in 2008, well, the banks got bailed out. But did the public get bailed out? No. And in fact, I have a piece that I put together that I'm super excited to do. So stay tuned. I'll be talking more about that a little bit later. But at the same time that all of this deregulation is happening and all of these mergers are, and less oversight, Treasury Secretary Bessent says that the asset thresholds need to be substantially increased. And what that means is that the big banks can get much, much bigger without oversight. All of the pegs are moving. Now they're using inflation as a reason to justify this, because what inflation does is it makes things look like they are going up, right? Stock markets, crypto markets, even the gold and the silver markets, right? The markets look like they're going up, but it's not really that. It's the value of this crap going down. And so they've got to move the goalpost. Do you remember a time when if somebody was a millionaire, that was a lot of money. But today, gosh, we're minting a whole lot of millionaires that are cash strapped. So $1 million isn't that much money anymore. Not at all. Neither is a billion, and heck, look at how they throw around trillions. The reality is that things are changing. And what Secretary Besson is saying is we want to make sure that you're able to grow with setting off the regulatory tripwires. Yeah, you and I as depositors, we're just in a whole lot more danger whether we realize it or not. Well, frankly, I do realize it, and so do others in Wall Street. Morgan Stanley shakes Wall Street by recommending a 20% of their portfolio in gold and silver. That's way far away from what the mainstream thought is, because they want you to think that diversifications is stocks and bonds, but they're not, because those things can only be converted into this garbage. So it's all your eggs in one basket. And now, what are they talking about? Oh, you better have some gold and silver to be properly diversified. Well, yes, everybody needs a foundation of sound money, period. Because that is the only way to protect what you've managed to accumulate. And when you look at the Zang Enterprise sound money strategy, it's built in layers. So no matter where you are inside of the strategy, you are in the best possible position. Even 20%. Wow. When you know that all of this stuff is based on this garbage, you only want 20% of your portfolio in sound money? Well, you've got to do what you're comfortable doing, but that sounds like crazy talk to me. I don't know. But what I can see happening is that the tides are shifting, and more of those in mainstream are saying, yeah, gotta have physical gold and silver, where you've got to at least have gold and silver. They prefer you to buy it in the intangible way. But if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And you're still subject to all that manipulation. Let's come together. Make sure that you have a sound money foundation, but how about making sure that sound money is inside of our monetary system again? What a concept. It worked before, and it can work again, but it must be redeemable. We must take our power back, meaning the public must take their power back, and we can do it. This is the best opportunity that I've seen in my lifetime to do it. Let's come together and make a positive difference for the whole world. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye. Before you turn it off, make sure that you hit that button and subscribe. Leave a comment. Share this information. Ignorance doesn't make anybody immune. It just leaves everybody vulnerable.